Welcome to your program, Important People, Things and More About England. Today, we're gonna talk about William Shakespeare. Who was William Shakespeare? Why it's so important for the British people and his story. Join me in this new capsule information. He was born on April 23rd, 1564 and died on May 3rd, 1616. Considered the greatest playwright of all time, William Shakespeare was born and raised in Stratford-upon-Avon. He was the third of five children between John Shakespeare and Mary Arden. John was a merchant, butcher, and local politician. Mary was from a distinguished family. William was not an active student, and his mother came from a good family. For these reasons, it is very possible that William, with his three brothers and a sister, were educated by their mother. But now let's talk about why William Shakespeare, the best playwright of all time, is so important for British people. Considered like the most important writer in the English language for his works, he is also as a teacher for many people. Shakespeare is also important for the great ability he had when he used poetic language. After his death, his works began to be recognized. Then, he became one of the most important writers of history. Many people said that he had not written his works. The truth is that today, many people have read or seen any of his works. Also, the people who don't like the theater or have never read a work know the name of William Shakespeare. Works like Romeo y Julieta, Macbeth, Otelo, El Moro de Venecia, Sueño de una noche de verano, and Hamlet had been presented in theaters. Shakespeare also has a lot of poems, like Venus y Adonis, La violación de Lucrecia, and a lot of sonetos. At an early age, he had to leave school and be a butcher like his father, because of the difficult economic situation in which they were. And now, being one of the greatest figures in literature, he never went to the university. Between 1590 and 1613, he wrote at least 37 works. Many of these works were very successful. Also, in addition to writing numerous works, he was an actor in many of his own works. Shakespeare was distinguished as a great poet, publishing two of his poems and some of his sonnets. His works were represented to Queen Isabel I and King Jacobo I. Between 1586 and 1593, he disappeared until he became a very famous playwright and one of the most popular persons in London. In 1589, Shakespeare started to write his own works in paper. Many of these works were represented 10 or 12 times in one month. He always had a lot of plays and made people never get bored. At the end of the century, he was already rich and bought or built a house in Stratford. That house was called New Place. In 1597, his son died, while his two daughters were married. Susan, one of they, get married with a merchant, and Judith with a doctor. In 1611, when Shakespeare was in the best moment of his fame, say goodbye with his work La Tempestad. Later, tired and sick, he retired to his home New Place. Finally, he died on April 23, 1616, at the age of 52 years. That date was marked in black in the history of literature. Since his death, all eras and styles have their own Shakespeare. My friends, this is the end of the capsule information, but finally, let me tell you that for me was so interesting to make a capsule information about Shakespeare. Why? Because all his life is so interesting. How he grew up being a butcher, how without going to university he wrote all his poems, sonnets and works, how finally he was someone successful. See you in the next capsule information.